So we've touched on it a little bit. It's essentially a love story. It's a romance, pretty heavy drama in there, and then obviously just set in with the background of the Cold War. Kind of begins in the late 40s, 49 or so, and we get kind of several look-ins at the lives of these two people that occur throughout the 50s, I think, up until like 62 or so, and then directed by a fairly well-known director at this point with Paweł Pawlikowski. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that somewhat close. And yeah, so it's just kind of it's a beautiful struggle, I suppose, of two people who love each other, trying to kind of actualize that love while also struggling in kind of the harshness of their lives and reality, and trying to kind of survive this period in history, I suppose. And they each have kind of different reactions to what is happening in the world around them, and it just leaves them at an almost impossible choices between kind of their conflicting motivations of survival and love for each other. And so you just kind of see a variety of tough choices being made, and how that affects their lives, and trying to figure it all out in the end. And as we'll be discussing with most of these other films, it's not a pure happy ending or anything like that. And I do remember vividly this watching this ending in the theater, and it's something where, I don't know, if you just kind of look at it with a technical eye, it seems kind of maybe a little cliche or on the nose or something, but it just somehow works for me, and I found real beauty in it, and I just overall really enjoyed this film when I first saw it. And I guess the only other thing I would add to it is kind of the more technical aspects of it in terms of the cinematography and the visuals, where he films in like a fairly like small what's the aspect ratio, and does his films in black and white too. I mean, Ida is the same way.
4:3.
Right, yeah. I figured it was 4:3, but I didn't want to say that officially because I didn't know for sure. And so yeah, so it's just kind of like a different style of filmmaking, relatively simple and straightforward shots, but I really enjoy the style, just in terms of with some like variety, and as well as kind of just depicting the landscape is just a different type of beauty, I suppose. And so yeah, I would say the 2 stars are Thomas Cott and Joanna Kulig, or Joanna in particular, I feel like is the highlight of this movie. I thought it was a fantastic performance.
Yeah, she's got a stunning singing voice as well, and the music is amazing. Going from, as it opens, this very kind of kitschy folk songs being sung a cappella, and then on to sort of that Paris jazz scene, and then finally sort of 60s sort of quite kitschy sort of like Latino pop or something, is brilliantly done. I love this film. Not for nothing, he won Best Director at Cannes. It was nominated for Oscars, won Oscars. It's just one of the best movies of that year for me. I think it's just stunning, and all in 88 minutes. People, you don't have to make 3-hour movies. You can pull our hearts and say something beautiful in 88 minutes, guys.
I struggle with this movie a little bit. Like, I found it a really pleasurable and enjoyable watch. Like, I wasn't checking my watch at all. Like, the visuals are beautiful. I love the different musical performances. I think the film does a really good job of capturing this sense of loneliness and yearning and melancholy, but I really struggled to connect with the characters. I felt like I don't know, like the performances were good, but I really didn't feel much chemistry. There wasn't a point for me where they fell in love, or I just didn't understand a lot of the decisions they were making, which had me kind of thinking I'd missed something, and it kind of took me out of the movie. So maybe that's my problem. Maybe I just wasn't feeling it as much. But
I think it's I think it's valid. I just think it's a bit sad because if you don't connect with them as a couple, then that's the point of the film, right? So yeah, it's going to be a less powerful watch. Oh, it's such a shame.
I don't regret watching it. It's a really nice movie to watch, but yeah, I don't know, it just left me feeling cold. And like, there were several points where, and maybe you guys will help me understand the film more, but just like, I guess I didn't understand why they kept leaving each other, because there just seemed to be several points in the film where they were together and they broke it off, or like I didn't understand why.
Going back to your family, going back to what's familiar. As difficult your life is in your home country, it is still your home country, and not feeling at home in Paris, not feeling yourself. And I think it speaks to kind of cosmopolitan lives, right, where you're never quite at home anywhere, and that can be quite tragic of itself. And people just forced to make these really invidious decisions about how they're going to live together and where. To me, this is it's the kind of 88-minute art house version of Dr. Zhivago, like two people who can't be together because of the world in which they live. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. I just I cried a lot watching this, I have to say.
I guess for me, like, a lot of the conflict seemed kind of artificial, or they didn't like sell me, because about halfway through the film, they both meet up in Paris, and she's sort of managed to get across the divide. She married like an Italian or something to be with him, and they're in Paris and they're making music. And they seem to be happy, and then suddenly they just get dissatisfied with each other, and they're constantly fighting and bickering. And then she leaves. Like I couldn't quite follow the thread of what happened there. It just seemed like, I don't know, they just got bored of each other. In which begs the question: what is this powerful love keeping them together?
I think for me, the through line for that is Zula's anxiety about social class and how she was trying to be a social climber, maybe pretending to be more rustic and peasant-like to get this gig in Poland. But she also feels out of place in this very bourgeois place in Paris. And I guess Victor feels out of place as well.
I guess the only way I can describe it, Duncan, and this is going to come off sounding so wanky, is I think that when you're really in love when you really know yourself and are comfortable with yourself, is when you can truly and really fall in love with someone else. And I don't think either of them truly felt themselves in Paris, and maybe her more. And that really undercut their love for each other because they were dissatisfied with themselves and their situation. If that makes sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess another question that I had a bit of confusion with was, why did Victor leave Poland in the first place? Like, what was drawing him to Paris that he couldn't get in Poland? Was it that cosmopolitan lifestyle? Was it access to the music of Western Europe and America and whatnot?
Working free of political interference, not having to do kitsch, Polish blood and fatherland music, probably.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, no, I mean, I thought it was more just trying to essentially escape from the East into the West. I thought it was more of just like a, I don't know, political or figured, opportunities would be better across the lines. It's kind of my interpretation of it.
Oh, that makes sense. Sorry, I don't mean to bring it down. Continue praising it.
No, it's valid. And I think I don't really have much else to say. I just think it's a perfect little romantic political drama. Loved it.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty much the same way. And yeah, Duncan, like, I don't think there's any issue with what you're saying. You're gonna connect with a love story or you're not. It's just that, because it's subjective, that is gonna determine pretty much 100% your overall feelings on the film.
I guess it's kind of the way I feel about music, where I either like a song or I don't. Like, I vibe with it or I don't. It hits me in the right way or it doesn't. And where a novel or a book, I can think of types of books or types of stories that I enjoy, and I can either fulfill those expectations or subvert them. But music is just so singular to me, and maybe that's what this film is. It's a singular kind of experience that you either connect to or don't.
Yeah, and I think for me, and perhaps what drew me to this film, is just for kind of the different and unique experience of it, where, I guess, when it comes to romance dramas or even comedies or whatever, where I probably watch more of those than people might think I do, but I do tend to to gravitate, ones that are trying to move away from the standard formula and have some interesting backdrop or unique circumstance around them. And so kind of putting this in a Cold War perspective, and as well as it being an international film of a history and people I'm not quite familiar with. That's definitely was part of the draw and why I just kind of enjoyed seeing a unique perspective on this type of story.
Yeah, I did think that was interesting, the Cold War context, that idea of, characters being pressured by the world around them, being pulled apart. And also it was just kind of cool getting this snapshot of these different European cities during the 40s and the 50s, and not necessarily in the political side of it, but just the social side of it, the music scene, relationships during this time. And that was very pleasant, just kind of living in this world, living in jazz bars in France or Czechoslovakia or whatever. One final question I had was the final scene of the film takes place in a church, and there's several references to religion. I was wondering if you thought there was any greater significance to that.
Oh, no, I honestly never really thought about it in the context of the film. I don't know, the decision of the church at the end just seemed more for the fact that they wanted to get married before moving on, and like, so that just happened to, and so that's why that particular thing was chosen. Plus obviously it's a ruin that we see kind of at the very beginning of the film while they're traveling around. So
yeah, and again, I think it's a very beautiful image, and it does have meaning. I think this idea of this relationship that is so fraught and scarred being kind of reconciled in the ruins of this church. And I think maybe in the context of the Cold War, the idea that the church was suppressed in the Eastern Bloc or the communist countries, and trying to reconnect with that, or reconnecting to that part of yourself that you can't, let out or have to keep quiet is cool, is interesting. I don't know. There's lots to, I think, interpret in the film, and lots to bring out of it, which I think is a credit to the film. It doesn't say too much, which means you can read a lot into it and take a lot out of it.